Epilogue. Hitch parted company with the Pinehurst companions after they had sailed up the Lock Spring River and reunited with their families. Cielo had been buried at sea after a simple ceremony. The men had almost had to fight Hitch in order to retrieve her body. They had used their lone sail as a shroud. Placing her arms over an anchor they had laid upon her chest, they had gently wrapped her body before laying her in the water and watching the white figure disappear beneath the calm ocean waters. Hitch had not spoken for the rest of the journey, simply taking his place by an oar and heaving with the others until they made their way along the coast to the river mouth. Upon landing, Turf had been the only person Hitch had allowed to approach him. Turf had told the dwarf how much Cielo had meant to him as well, and that he had hoped that after everything they would have been husband and wife. The news had torn at Hitch anew, the idea of all that she would miss out causing him to break down and collapse into Turf's arms for a moment before he composed himself. Afterwards, he had walked away from the group without another word, disappearing into the woods, never be seen by his unlikely allies again. And so Hitch returned to his workshop, hidden in the valley of the God's Fell Woods, far from the eyes of men and beasts, and took no more part in the conflict that would in time become known as the War of the Lance. The pivotal role he, Cielo, and the Pinehurst companions had played in tying up the resources of the Dark Queen's forces at Haltagoth would never be known. During the remaining years of the war, the men had kept themselves and their families hidden as best they could, avoiding contact with the outside world. In the years that followed, they seldom spoke of what they had done, as every man and his dog had killed a dragon high lord personally, if the tall tales told around campfires and tavern hearths were to be believed. Such was the fog of war, that for every man who becomes a part of folklore and legend, thousands more fight and die in relatively unknown obscurity. Down the years, as Hitch rebuilt his workshop and plied his trade again, he often found himself thinking of his adopted human daughter. She never aged as he aged, perfectly preserved as she was in his memories. As the lines that age and toil had cut into his face grew deeper, as the silver of his hair whitened to snow, still she remained in his mind in the full bloom of her youth. Sitting down one day, he decided to make something of great delicacy and complexity, far removed from the arms and armor that were his stock and trade. Retrieving a small oiled leather roll of brass tools, he set to work hammering and shaping. It had taken many weeks to finally complete, having stopped and started over several times when things had not been perfect, until finally it was ready. A small wooden box with engraved silver panels. Upon flicking the latch and raising the lid, a simple tune would begin to play as a delicate golden figurine of a human girl began to turn in place, their arms out for balance at their sides, much like a young woman had done once as she walked along the stone fence in the backyard of a smith's forge in the tiny town of Pinehurst so many years ago, when a dwarf had ceased his labours to watch and marvel at her beauty and feel his heart grow warm as it did whenever his gaze fell upon her. The end. The author of this book would like to dedicate it to his daughter, Cielo Azul, who was the inspiration for the main characters. He would also like to thank Adam from Dragonlance Saga, who once asked the question, what else can I do for content on my channel? That inspired the idea of me to create a short story, which once I started writing, became the full-length novel that you have just listened to. I'd also like to thank Chris, a member of the Dragonlance Saga channel, and for all of his feedback and positivity and encouragement to me during this writing process. I didn't give up, Chris, because you believed in me, and for that I'll be forever grateful. Thank you all for reading this, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I have in creating it, as a fan of Dragonlance and as a fan of great works of fiction. Thank you all.